items of interest in relation to any item on the agenda? No. Minutes of the previous meeting. If the minutes of the previous meeting, the minutes of the last scrutiny held on the 10th of April are submitted for approval. Can we all please approve?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 4, agenda item 4 is the pathway and net zero fleet. There is a presentation of this item and the Assistant Chief Officer, Jed Sharon, will introduce the presenting officer. Over to you, Jed.
Thanks, Councillor Finneran. Colleagues will note the report that's in the pack. We've asked Area Manager Dave Watson and our Transport Manager Dave Seasman just to talk you through. It would be helpful to talk through some bits of work that's ongoing in terms of the wider contribution to net zero. So this presentation and the report is to focus purely upon the changes and some significant improvements we've made to fleet. But I'll hand you over to Dave now.
Thank you, sir, and good afternoon, members. Yes, my name is Area Manager Dave Watson. I'm responsible for operational preparedness, which includes transport. And as the boss mentioned, I'm accompanied by our Transport Manager Dave Seasman, who will help answer any technical questions. A quick overview of the presentation itself. We will quickly remind members around the government road to net zero strategy. We'll outline our current fleet position, the short, medium-term fleet development plan, the long-term sustainability plan, and the cost analysis. We will also briefly just cover, or if you like, contextualise where this sits in the broader pathway to net zero plan for the service. So as a reminder, as part of the government's reducing emissions from road transport, or the zero strategy, the plan is to eventually move to a system whereby all tailpipe emissions for vehicles are no longer within the fleet system. So from 2030, new petrol and diesel cars and vans will no longer be available for purchase in the UK. And from 2035, new hybrid vehicles will cease to be sold. In addition, 2035 will see an end to the sale of new non-zero emission HGVs, that's heavy goods vehicles, weighing 26 tonnes and under, and from 2040 that will be all heavy goods vehicles. Just to contextualise that, the vast majority of our operational fleet, so that's the majority of the fire engines themselves, they all come under that 26 tonne threshold. We only have a minor number of appliances, the aerial appliances that we use, that would come above that. But certainly by 2040 we would have to achieve that for the entire fleet. Long-term aim is for the service fleet to move to ultra-low emission vehicles in a practical and financially sustainable way. So in terms of our current fleet position, in terms of the small car fleet, we have 92 cars in total. This includes both blue light response and the departmental vehicles that are things like prevention and protection we use on a daily basis to go out and do audits and inspections and the like. The fleet currently contains 6 48-volt mild hybrids and 15 self-charging hybrid blue light response vehicles. So we've been moving towards all of our blue light response vehicles that we use for senior officer response to incidents to this hybrid system, if you like, in an incremental stepped process to hopefully get to a zero emission position in the future. So at present, the small car fleet is currently about 23% low emission, which is a significant milestone really. About a quarter of our small fleet is already at a low emissions position. This year there will be a further 7 self-charging blue light response vehicles introduced to the fleet as part of our normal replacement programme. So as the diesel vehicles start to come towards the end of their operational life, we'll slowly drift them out and replace them with the hybrids for now until we approach that 2035 milestone. That still gives us more time to work towards net zero, but whilst also progressing towards, if you like, decarbonisation of our fleet. With the introduction of those 7 hybrids, with those vehicles, 7 hybrid vehicles will be moved from blue light response to station vehicles. So currently there are a number of vehicles out on stations we use for a variety of tasks. They're diesel vehicles mostly. These new hybrids, the current hybrids will be replaced by new ones, and those ones will move out to stations, if that makes sense. So that it'll be a gradual process as we start to filter down to the entire fleet.
Can we
questions as it's going on, or wait till the end?
Please do.
To you, what would you like them to do? Wait till
I'd
the
like to,
end?
because I'll probably forget by the time I get to the end what I was going to ask.
Can write it
If
down.
that's all right.
Yeah.
Go on then.
Why are we using hybrids and not going to full electric? Because full electric is going to happen
Yes.
for the vehicles, for these smaller vehicles. What was the thinking behind buying hybrids instead of going for full electric cars?
Okay, I'll answer that part and then I'll ask
Right, sure.
Dave to come in. In the first instance, a lot of the infrastructure, I was going to come on the end slide, is not in place for the service to move to full electric vehicles yet. So we need charging points in practically every location. And because of that, and because of the blue light emergency response nature, i.e. if we need to turn out and need to incident, there's a greater chance of the vehicle, if you like, running out of energy on a battery system that we wouldn't immediately be able to recharge, if that makes sense. So certainly for the blue light small car fleet, that's why we've not taken that immediate approach right now. But it is, however, part of our long-term plan. So currently the Training and Development Academy, that's already built with charging points within it. And I know that the current estates manager has got an intent to put charging points here at the service headquarters in the future. So a lot of those small fleets in the future, and I think we was about to come on to it shortly anyway, Dave will add to this in a minute, we were going to buy full electric at some future point. What we're doing at the minute is an incremental change, if that makes sense, so that we don't exhaust ourselves when we've not got all the infrastructure in place. Dave, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the nature of the use of them vehicles being blue light vehicles and the fact that they go to the home residences of the officers on charge because they're on duty full time, they may not have charging points at their home address. So the blue light response vehicles, it was going to be kept as hybrids for now, but from next year onwards we'll be buying a plug-in electric or full electric vehicles depending on the infrastructure.
And we're confident that we'll have the charging points
Yes,
when they're needed.
so we won't introduce that until, if you like, the infrastructure plan has been approved, and we know that's going forward. Once we know the infrastructure is in place, we're obviously dovetailing with transport, and then transport will give the green light to the full electric buildings. It is part of the estate improvement plan.
Come in, Ken. Did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, yeah, I was one was going to make the point that there aren't enough charging points in enough places to kind of go fully electric anyway. I mean, why that hasn't is beyond me. But anyway, in terms of these particular vehicles, are they the appliances that we approved the purchase of at the AGM?
Those are diesel vehicles. So at the last AGM, the authority approved the procurement of 12 appliances.
Yeah.
Yes. I was going to talk about the fire engine replacement later on, if you want to come back to that then,
Okay.
if that's acceptable.
Sam, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering whether the authority would be paying for electric charging points in staff members' own homes. Is that envisioned in the future? Didn't you say they charge them from home?
No, not necessarily. I mean, at the minute, we don't have a plan in place for the blue light cars to become fully electric yet. We would need to answer that question in the fullness of time. So if you like, that's probably going to be towards the back end of the vehicle replacement plan as we move towards 2035. But it is a very good question, and indeed why we've not, if you like, made that transition yet, or made that plan transition, because whilst we could charge the blue light response vehicles here or training academy or even fire stations if we put the infrastructure in place, we need to have assurances that those officers would have those charging points at home. I'm not aware that's been a
Bring Jed in, please.
Yeah, just give you a little bit more detail on it. So in terms of some of the areas Dave's already mentioned, one of the main reasons for the senior officers' cars not to go full electric, as well as the range that Dave mentions in terms of that the coverage that officers would need, I think, and the infrastructure to support it. One of the other issues that we would have to face, and we'll also need that reassurances in place, is that petrol hybrids give us a a significant amount of resilience. So in terms of emergency fuel provisions and our responsibilities under the Civil Contingencies Act, we need to be able to respond. At the moment, for senior officers, a full electric fleet does not offer us that level of resilience. So until we can have that and confidently we can reassure members that we can still respond to incidents, we would have to remain utilising hybrids or mild hybrids until it's a little bit more robust and the range increases, which we're already seeing that in the electric fleet. You're probably familiar with that yourselves, but until that's in place, I don't think we'll be in a position to respond in that manner.
Chair, could I just ask a quick one?
A quick one, yeah.
Just very quick, a quickie. How long is our long-term plan? We have a plan that we're implementing now, and then I assume, I'm only new to the committee, you see. So then I assume you've got a medium-term plan and a long-term plan. How long is the medium and how long is the long?
Yeah, so we've obviously got the medium-term financial plan. Dave also produces the transport asset management plan, where, Dave, do you want to cover off in terms of our long vehicle, sort of the roll down of the vehicles and how we keep them in the fleet overall?
So within the fleet, transport asset management plan, we have a 5-year capital replacement programme which will be medium term. That's based on the different life cycles dependent on the vehicle use. So the officer response cars we try to keep under 5 years old because of the nature of the job, where departmental cars would be 10 years, so that would be on a 10-year replacement programme. Each year the transport asset management plan is refreshed, it'll bring the next year in, so we've always got that 5-year, but within our fleet management system I can project up to 15, 20 years. We don't keep anything that long, but I can do a 10-year plan. What needs changing, both heavy and light vehicles within that 10 years.
Thanks.
Can I just say as well that some of the things that you're asking now are coming in later on in the presentation, I'm right, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll come on to the engine, like electric firefighters. So on point 3 there, and we've covered a bit of that, 26 to 27, our intention is to see the introduction of 19 plug-in hybrids, all fully electric vehicles, into the MFS small vehicle fleet. So we can get those now once the infrastructure is in place. So undertake those duties that I mentioned earlier, like prevention and protection activities. So there's a number of vehicles positioned throughout the service, used on a daily basis, that would never go to an officer's own, for example. Those, we can make that transition a lot sooner, because we know we can get the infrastructure in place sooner for those. And so hopefully by the end of 26-27 financial year, if all of that goes ahead, we will have around about 51% of the small car fleet in low emission vehicles. Again, a major step towards decarbonisation of the fleet. In terms of long term, and we have covered a bit, but I'll cover some bits perhaps we haven't discussed. We'll obviously continue to migrate the small car fleet, as I've mentioned, as part of the vehicle capital replacement programme that Dave's just covered. We'll also be moving the light commercial van fleet as part of the same programme over a 10-year cycle. And we're going to continue to monitor the market for developments and advances in the electrification of fire appliances. I'll briefly touch upon this now, but I've got a bit on the next slide as well. It's quite an emerging area of technology, electrification of heavy goods vehicles, not just fire engines, a haulage, for example. But every sector of the UK will be affected by that government milestone of 2035 and 2040 respectively. But it's fair to say, I think a lot of that technology, particularly for heavy fleet, is probably still in its infancy, and as we've already discussed, a lot of the infrastructure you need to power something that's a heavy goods vehicle, yeah, it needs a lot of power. And obviously, because of the nature of the business of a fire engine, it undertakes a range of tasks, driving to and but then it continues running at an incident, obviously to provide pumping activity, etc. There's a lot of demand, if you like, on that as a resource. So we are still keeping an eye on this as an area of the market. I'll come back to that on the next slide because there's a bit more to talk about on that. Ongoing review of fleet use and reducing or adapting the fleet where possible. So another piece of work that Dave's been working on for us is actually reducing the overall fleet, and indeed he's just finishing off work on a paper now to look at a 10% reduction of our small fleet overall. So that will also add benefits to decarbonisation, because we won't be replacing, you know, say 10% of the vehicles with electric in the future. They'll just be gone. That'll be better for us in terms of affordability, because obviously an electric vehicle does cost more typically than a petrol or a diesel. And of course, continued review of work processes that would reduce the need for travel, such as remote vehicle CCTV access. In terms of cost analysis, the cost of a self-charging petrol hybrid is comparable to an equivalent diesel vehicle, with plug-in hybrids slightly more expensive. Obviously, the benefit of a plug-in hybrid is with a charging point, we can charge that for the initial journey, whereas a hybrid, it charges itself as you're driving, but then you regain some of the efficiency, particularly on intermittent journeys in particular. Cost of a full electric vehicle is considerably more expensive, and the market needs to be constantly monitored for best value. That's why we've set, if you like, target milestones for us in the future, where we are planning the procurement of them, and of course, hopefully the cost of electric vehicles will continue to come down as the technology improves and it becomes a more wider market availability. Currently, we know of 2 electric fire appliances operational within the UK. One's in London Fire Brigade and one's in Scotland. They've been working for a little while now. The rest of the sector is keeping an eye on this emerging market. Dave sits nationally on something called the Transport Officers Group, whereby, if you like, we're keeping abreast of these things, so we know how the technology is developing, what improvements are being made, etc. And say at some point in the future we will undoubtedly obviously move in that direction, but at this present time we're not making an immediate plan to procure an electric fire appliance until we're confident, one, the infrastructure is there and the technology can support obviously the emergency day-to-day operations and the resilience aspects that the boss mentioned earlier. And as you can see in that slide, the current cost of electric fire appliances is about 2 to 3 times more than a standard diesel appliance. So when you consider the range of our fleet, that's a considerable cost envelope moving towards the next 10 to 15 years. Technologies, I've already mentioned that, and of course we will require continued investment in this area in terms of meeting these government's ambitions for net zero, particularly as we move towards 2035 and 2040, where these vehicles will stop being produced then. Just to, if you like, contextualise all of that, because I'm aware we've focused very much on fleet for you today, but obviously, as you'll be aware, the pathway to net zero for the service is part of a broader spectrum of activity. The authority invested in specialist advice and guidance to support this and engaged in research and consulting to support us in this venture. They undertook a detailed review of the service's existing greenhouse gas footprint, including key recommendations for improvements, and help us develop a pathway to net zero which aligns with the Liverpool City Region's 2040 net zero ambition. And it's going to involve quite a few departments because it's quite an ambitious plan, so our components of it in terms of fleet, it just fits into a broader one, and we've mentioned some of it already today, how we're going to require infrastructure investments and improvements, in particularly around the States. But obviously it does affect ICT, other departments that I'm responsible for, such as operational planning and response, people and organisational development. And obviously procurement is going to be key in the next 5 to 10 years, so it will involve procurement and finance. There's impacts on waste, so estate, again, catering and the training and development academy. And it will obviously involve corporate communications, strategy and performance, and of course legal services. So this just forms a very small area that we're currently focusing on. It will require support from other departments, but to reassure you, it is part of a much broader service plan of how we reach that government's ambition for net zero. And I think that's my last slide, sir. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Questions? Karen? Yeah, you could be next after Karen, okay?
Picking up on the theme of comparing the vehicles that we're using now, etc., with fully electric. Obviously, I get the fact that a hybrid can be charged up while it's sitting in the station. It charges itself up as it's going around. from location to location. But in terms of fully electric, how far can one of these appliances go on a single charge?
Yeah, so currently the one that's in London Fire Brigade, it has a battery lifespan of about 4 hours, so they're basing it not on mileage because it's obviously pumping time. So that can go to a job, can pump for about 4 hours. It's fully electrically operated, but it still has a 6-cylinder internal combustion engine to try and keep the batteries charged. So although it's fully electrically operated, it's not a zero emission vehicle. But at the moment, between 4 and 5 hours pumping time. So once they've been to a job, that's a pick and choose what type of jobs it does go to. Probably not extended jobs, and then go back to station and be charged after that.
I just want to say that I think I'm really reassured by this approach, by the fact that we're not compromising response times and like keeping in with the hybrid vehicles. I also think like you have like this technology is expensive when it first comes out, and then when it becomes more mainstream, it then drops in price. So we're kind of I think that's quite good because it will drop down in price like as we come closer to 2035, just because more people will be using it. So I think that's quite like good as well. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. What's the cost? Why have London and Scotland got these engines, which must be a huge cost? And have they been supported by the government, whichever government it was, to buy these engines as a prototype? Because it seems, from what you just described, it seems crazy to me that any fire authority in the country, never mind, London is a big authority, of course it is, and I think the fire authority in Scotland is the whole of Scotland. But has it been subsidised, and is it a prototype that
To be honest,
we're looking at? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that. Sorry.
It just seems crazy at the moment to have an all electric with a battery, with an engine backup. That anyone would go for that model.
If it was on a, sorry.
So I'm just going to say, I mean, obviously we can't comment on why Scotland or London.
No, it's just yeah.
I'm not aware of the finance of how.
It can be a fully electric fire appliance if it's on charge on station and goes to a small job and then back to station. All of that will be on its normal battery. If it goes to an extended job, then the engine will kick in to try and just doesn't do anything, just recharges the batteries. But at this time, the technology is not there that engine could run and keep the batteries permanently charged. So it just slows down the rate of discharge of the batteries at the moment. So it could be fully electric if it's on a short job. It goes up, does an hour's job, comes back, it's fully electric.
It seems like fully electric is a long way off.
Yeah,
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, certainly when you think of a lot of the incident types we go to, so we had an incident at scrapyard again this weekend. Typically, fires in scrapyards can last several days sometimes. And as Dave's just articulated, if you get an incident where you do require prolonged operation at an incident ground itself, right now it would probably create some difficulties. Hence why we're taking a slightly longer term view for the heavy fleet.
Yeah.
Andrew,
Thank you.
can you come after Andrew?
Thanks, Chair. I'm actually quite astonished, really, that we haven't got charging points at headquarters for our staff. Most large employers do have them now to support their staff moving to electric vehicles. Do we have a timescale for them being installed here? And what is the actual target date for installing them across the entire estate?
Don't have that exact information now, but we will certainly get that back to you, circular to members. Probably a question for our estates manager.
I am aware there is a plan with it, but we'll be able to confirm the dates to you.
Okay. Doreen, will you come in after?
This is an evolving technology. It's not going to be easy. It will take a long time. It will take a lot of money. They've got to have prototypes somewhere. They've got to see how they react, because you are one of the services that are there, and need to be there, because if there's obviously you've got to be able to stay on site until the job is done. I think the attitude that you're taking, being new to the committee, is quite sensible. The cost will be astronomical, I assume, by the time you've finished, and it won't be able to be put in as an en bloc. I think the way you're moving forward seems to me, as I say, sensible, and as long as we are seeing that sensible attitude and moving forward, I think you're doing the right thing. Thank you.
Sorry.
I was just going to
Well
ask
said.
about the cost, Edna,
Well
and
said.
also, are we getting, is there any support coming in from combined authority?
Sorry, was that in relation to fleet in particular?
Yes.
No, it's funded through NFRs. So in terms of support, I think in terms of the approach, the reliability and the range, everything what Dave's already I think we're right to keep an eye on what's emerging in the markets, but until we can offer everyone the reassurance that we can still respond in the excellent way that we do, you know, I wouldn't be able to recommend moving to a full electric fleet or any variant on the approach that we've taken at this point, because it is funded through our own budget, and therefore we really need to make careful decisions in terms of how we spend that, in terms of the reliability and the resilience it offers. So the fire appliance that authority was made aware of our last meeting, as well as appliances there, the technology isn't there for us to consider any variant to that. So that's why we, you know, rest assured, you know, Dave and colleagues within the service will be keeping a full watch and brief on the reliability and how that technology improves. Because at the moment, we'd simply be looking at those types of vehicles merely as a way of capturing the headline to say there's an electric fire engine. Would it be on the run? Would it be reliable? Would it give us the coverage around Merseyside that members of the public deserve? You know, I couldn't give you that recommendation. So at this point, I think the approach we're taking, you know, I fully endorse, and I think it's the right way for us to progress.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Have you finished your presentation or have you got more?
That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, can I ask, is the recommendation that members note the progress so far and the future intent of the fleet vehicles?
Do we agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 5, annual health, safety and welfare report. Can I ask the Chief Fire Officer Jed again to come in? We're using you today, mates, aren't we?
You promoted me.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dave. Thanks, colleagues. So, yeah, just in the same format as previous, what I'd like to introduce now is the annual health, safety and welfare report. Colleagues will recognise this as a standard item we discuss on an annual basis. The report is very detailed with some real you know, clear signs of sustained progress and sustained focus upon health, safety and welfare of our staff. But to do it justice, I think Kevin, our station manager in health and safety, Kevin Hollis, will talk you through a small presentation.
Okay. Would you like your questions after your presentation or before? Or while we're going on?
If we could have them at the end, if that's okay, just to...
Yeah, I think that's more sensible, yeah.
As we go along.
Okay, thank you.
That's acceptable to the Chair. Chair, Assistant Chief Officer, thank you very much. As I said, my name is Kev Hollis. I'm a station manager within the Health and Safety Department here. And I'm here to run you through the annual health, safety and welfare report for 24-25. Within your pack you'll have the full report and also the covering report. But what I'm going to kind of draw out today is some of the pertinent points within that. And kind of highlight a lot of good work that's gone on and continues to go on with the service. To highlight the positive culture we have in the
welfare. What I want is to give you assurance really on the compliance that the service undertakes in this really, really important area. So the aim of today, we're going to run through an overview of the accident and injury performance over the last reporting period. We'll look at the traffic collision performance, highlight the levels of near miss and safety event reports, and give a bit of background as to what we look for as a service. Members may be aware of the reducing fire exposure to fire contaminants work stream, so we'll give an update on progress over the last year. We'll look at our inspection, audit and monitoring progress and see how that looks like, what we undertake on behalf of the service. Review the welfare provisions that's happened also, and then we'll also look ahead at our department's priorities for the year. So we'll kind of a look back and also a brief overview of what's coming for the year ahead. Our kind of workplace monitoring is built into two distinct strands. So the first one will be workplace, and what this will cover is, as I say, it's the workplace, so it covers accidents and injuries that on a day-to-day basis we have. We have 4 LPIs performance, so the apologies is a little bit small, but it talks through operation. The main LPI performance is on operational staff and talks through an overarching number. It also breaks that down to subcategories, so injuries at incidents, injuries at risk physical training, also injuries in routine activities, and that allows us to drill down into where our accidents are happening, so allow us to look at those distinct ones. We also have a couple of monitoring, which don't have a kind of a service plan target or a performance rating, but we do monitor every injury. It is given the same amount of focus in terms of the investigation. And the last one is the near miss reporting procedure. So that sits within workplace. This has its own group, which is the workplace review group, which is chaired by Supervisor Whitfield. And again, we review all the incidents that have happened, just to ensure we're giving that quality assurance that things are happening. It's also scrutinised within performance management group. So again, that is measured against our targets on a monthly basis. So we have accountability to go. If we are seeing an increase in incidents, what's our response on a kind of month-by-month basis? This is not something which we pick up at the end of the year. It's constantly monitored. So if I could draw you, so this table is actually within the covenant report, and I'm really pleased to kind of bring to you some really good performance of and the numbers that I'm going to report to you today. WR13 being the overarching operational staff injuries. This slide will only detail operational staff, a reduction again for the second year running on injuries on duty to our operational staff, which is really, really encouraging. Of those 38 injuries, 24 members of staff remained on duty. So again, that kind of will jump out as a figure because that means the injuries were minor of nature and they didn't have to go off. Again, within that 38, 42% were sprain and strain, which are the most common injury type that we're seeing. So we've also had a decrease in the amount of duty days lost. So from 234, we've had a reduction, down to 234, which is a reduction of 93 on the previous year. So again, reduction in duty days lost due to injuries, which is really positive. And if we add some kind of context to that, we had kind of operational staff, we attended nearly 18,000 incidents last year. So a really large response to operational incidents. And thankfully, the figures have been reduced, reductions across the board. Think about the report with those 24 members of staff staying on duty is that it highlights the positive reporting culture that we have. A lot of these injuries in the past may have been underreported because people stayed on duty and didn't think they were significant. But for us, what we're really trying to highlight is every injury we need reported. Because we can't analyse trends, we can't drill down underneath if we're not seeing the issue. So that's something as a health and safety department that we'll focus on the positive reporting, because it allows us, if we're seeing injury types in certain areas, we can then look at policy, procedure, training to try and alleviate those injuries. Within WR34, we have had a slight increase of injuries in risk physical training.
is still below the predicted annual performance of 12. Just a bit of background, the predicted annual performance isn't always a static figure. Quite rightly, based on governance, as our risk profile changes, as our work streams change, we may increase or even decrease those performance targets. So if we're performing really better, we might bring it back down. Okay, so it's not a static figure that is reviewed by the health and safety manager based on the risk profile over a number of years.
Can I just ask where you've got the RAG ratings? I'm assuming that the G is good.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm agreed. So green are good. Yes. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
No problem. Again, to add some context, that risk critical training area is an overall increase. We do push and we are asking the staff to increase the area of training in terms of exercising. So it's something that year on year we've had an increase in our training. So our multiple exercises, our training for our specialist stations, that increases year by year. That's an ask. So for more staff are asking us to do more realistic training. And again, for your assurance, all exercises off station are assured by the health and safety department to make sure that they're safe for members. Because quite likely, if we're asking them to go off site and undertake the exercises, the health and safety department will visit the site, we'll check risk assessment, and we'll also go and attend the exercise as well, just to make sure that we're keeping our staff as safe as possible. So obviously, I hope that'll give you a bit of reassurance so that the increase in risk critical training is met with an increased response from the health and safety department. WR22 is a reduction of so we used to accident injury. So these are the two monitoring LPIs. WR32 is non-operational staff. So we've seen a reduction in the amount of injuries of our non-operational staff, which is really encouraging. And importantly as well, of those 7 injuries, 6 people remained on duty. So again, going back to that, incidents are of minor nature and positive reporting. If we have a look at the near miss reporting, we have seen a reduction in the near miss reporting from the last period. However, I think it's only right to point out it's the second highest in 4 years, so it's still an overall trend in the right direction of near miss and safety event reporting. The reason why this is monitoring it, it's not always something we can predict as to how many near misses we've had. And as a service, we positively encourage the reporting of near misses. That may be an indicator of the workplace being safer. So if we continually work and make our sites safer, the level of near miss reporting may well drop. That's not always an indicator of an unsafe workplace. However, through health and safety, through the senior management group, we do positively encourage near misses. We also give feedback, so if someone gives a reported near miss, we may decide to do an investigation based on what that near miss is, and we may decide not to because the remedial actions were put in place at that time by the person. We will give them feedback to say, thank you very much for the near miss, we have measures in place and we're satisfied that that near miss or safety event has been dealt with. In terms of compliance, as a service, as a department, we comply with the requirements of the RIDL regulations. So for us, that would be the reporting of injuries, accidents in the workplace, which fit into those. So in terms of the RIDL major, we've had one over the last reporting period, and that was a fracture. So again, apologies if people aren't aware that there is classifications of injuries. So certain injuries we must report. Anything important to that would be submitted to the HSE. The RIDL minor, we have had an increase in one. So last year it was 7, this is 8. But if I set that against an overall decrease in accidents that we've had in the workplace, those RIDL minors are always, in this case, is the over 7-day reporting. So if someone injures themselves in work and is off work for 7 days, we have to report that. That's what it you'll notice within the report, excuse me, sorry, we did also have dangerous and careless stuff reported through these regulations, and this relates to the use of breathing apparatus at an operational incident, whereby a BA wearer, due to the safety features of that BA set, suffered what's called a free flow event. So air started coming into the mask as a safety feature. That BA wearer then withdrew themselves from the risk area, came outside and suffered no effects and no injuries. Following that, as per our procedure, the BA was impounded and a full joint investigation was completed. Following that, it was found to be again within the mass and the safety features of the BA work as they should. And importantly, just given that wraparound, I went back out to meet the firefighter who was involved, gave him the results of the investigation, just for his assurance that the service following the event. And obviously the investigate was a joint investigation involving functions and representative bodies. So that covers the workplace feedback on our figures contained in the report. Second function would be road risk, and this regarding our fleet. So again, this is monitored through the performance management group, and again, Route Manager Whitfield shares the road risk review group. The LPIs, we have an overall involvement in fire service vehicles, and then we break them down into collisions, operational incidents, wild against the routine activities, number of RTCs with light vehicles, hit with a vehicle, and we also have light vehicles, so fleet. So in the previous presentation, that wider fleet of our prevention and protection activities, that's also categorised, so we're aware of where our accidents are happening. So if we just drill down into the figures a little bit more, the kind of overall, so the top 5 are the ones with, we've got 4 here with targets and then quality assurance for the rest. So the overall road traffic collisions fire service vehicles sits at 60, which is 12 below the predicted annual performance and 6 less than last year. So it's a second year we've seen a reduction in the overall amount of collisions, which is really encouraging. In terms of appliance collisions across the ones where we've seen activity, the overall largest group is slow speed moving forward. So we class slow speed as less than 10 miles an hour. So the majority of our collisions. So if we take the 56 collisions we've had involving a fire appliance, 36 was slow speed moving forward. So that's our main group of collisions that we've had. Later on in the presentation, I'll just cover a bit about the continual work we do to reduce collisions. We also had 6 collisions where the speed was above 10 mile an hour. So the categories are below the 10, 11 to 20, and that's where those other ones sit in. RR30 was 0, that one's a quality assurance, and the RR34, which is our fleet of ancillary vehicles protection, we do non-operational, and we have 4 in there, which again is a reduction from last year, so really encouraging in terms of the amount. It's a reduction of 3 from last year. We had 7, we've got 4 this year, and all of them were less than 10 mile an hour, so all in that lower risk group, which is really good. The bottom 2 are quality assurance. So RR35, this is where people have discovered damage when they took over a vehicle. So when someone takes over a vehicle, we do an A routine, which is a full check of the vehicle before we drive it, and often at that point people can find damage, and that's reported through that. So obviously again, it's still investigated to try and find out what was the cause of the damage, but that's done by monitoring. And hit by over vehicle is a fairly self-explanatory kind of group. This is where someone's collided with one of our vehicles, and again, the reason why we include this is to make sure we're giving the welfare to our crews. If they're involved in a collision, we're quite likely to make sure that we're looking into it from a service point of view and giving that kind of welfare provision that we expect. So every collision is reviewed at the road risk review group, as I've mentioned before. Route Manager Whitfield sits on. It's a multifunction group, so Dave Season, who sat in front of you here before, so he sits on that group. He's the fleet manager. We have legal services, and we also have the driving school. So we'll look at every collision our vehicles have been involved in, and through the group and the expertise within the group, we'll look to see whether the investigations have gone through and we're quality assured. If there are, a really important bit about it is the kind of support that we'll give to drivers. So if the driver's involved in a collision, we will give them support. So it's a kind of look around the collisions occurred, what support can we give to that driver to prevent reoccurrence. So that group will decide on actions go out, let's have a conversation, let's review the CCTV, let's review what's happened of that collision, just to make sure we do as much as we can to prevent reoccurrence of any accidents. So that's the rogue risk group. So we move on to the inspection audit and monitoring. So every site that we have will receive an inspection by the Health and Safety Department. And this is to ensure compliance with regulations such as COSH and also rules. There's a reduction on last year, and that's due to just a change in the sites. When you opened the TDA, we had relocation of ISAR and National Resilience into the TDA. So one of our smaller units was lost. And also the consolidation of Long Wall Lane Fire Station across to the Stimulatory Fire Station, which is meant obviously that's why we got a reduction, but all sites were visited as required by Health and Safety. And again, that's once the inspections are done, it's fed back into a variety of ponds to ensure there's anything kind of covered in there, any remedial actions are put in place, and we monitor that for trends across our site. 100% completion of monthly station manager health and safety inspections. So again, so as the station manager, I will do an inspection on my station every month, and that's replicated across the site. So again, we've got full compliance with the requirements of the state for monthly health and safety inspections. So move on to the reducing exposure to contaminants work stream. Members may be aware we've undertook the zoning of community fire stations to further reduce that risk. I know Councillor Makinson came to Kensington last year and we had a tour of the site. Each station now has zoning, so it's, as you'll know, they're not very intrusive. The sticker in certainly red and the green sticker on doors where you move between areas. And this is to make sure the staff are aware of what that zone will be and what their kind of direction of travel is. And what that is to further reduce the risk of contaminants entering the fire station. It's already covered in terms of our cleaning regimes to minimise the chance of contaminants being on fire engines once we leave the scene, in terms of how we disrobe, all that's covered in. But the zoning makes it clear to people exactly what's permitted on those sites. So all that is also detailed now within the service instruction detailed there, and that gives staff guidance. So staff guidance on the zoning, what should be within those zones, and it provides assurance for us as station managers, so everyone's aware of what the compliance is with this reducing exposure to fire contaminants work stream. So it's really positive now that we've got that service instruction. Alongside, we mentioned before, we have a monthly health and safety inspection that I would undertake. We now undertake a second one, which specifically relates to this work stream. So there'll be two inspections which will look at two different things and will ensure compliance with the service instruction there. So that's undertaken. And obviously we're giving feedback to staff to ensure that they're aware of what the expectation is. We have an appointed station manager leading this work stream who monitors compliance with the work stream and also some of the kind of wider work that's going on. And that being that we're embedded within the regional FCC group. So within the Northwest region, there's two groups related to this. Would be the Regional Health and Safety Group, and there is also a Regional Reducing Exposure to Contaminants Group. So that SM sits within that group. And what they will meet is, as part of the NFCC kind of toolkit, our Northwest region gives a work stream of training and competence within the area. So that group is working towards those parameters that have been set by the NFCC. The SM lead applies with that, and by fall will ensure that we're complying with the training that's expected of it. If I could move on to the welfare, the full update is a lot more detail. It breaks down the figures a lot more for you within the full report. Total medical appointments would be 1,787, and this would be health screenings, other duties reviews, and more your general kind of medical appointments. Total occupational health referrals stands at 1,131. This group refers to areas such as physiotherapy referrals, nutrition appointments, and also fitness tests. So that's where that figure's broken down to, and again, all this is contained within the report in a lot more detail. The critical incident stress management activity it was 323, and that's an increase on the previous year. So again, that's broken down, and the total therapy appointments that relates to, we have a range of internal and external counsellors within the service that people have access to. That's over 100 appointments more that we did last year. So so I'll now do a quick look ahead, a brief look ahead into 25-26 priorities for the Health and Safety Department. Manage performance for the further reductions, again, that's an ongoing task. What will fall out of that as well, members may recall in the previous presentation, we went through the benchmarking statistics. That is not within these benchmarking statistics, will come out in October. So that will, once that's reviewed in October, we'll receive that into the service, and the findings will be given to the Health and Safety Committee once they're into. So we will measure ourselves against comparative services to look at our performance. As said, we'll increase on the near-risk reporting, and we'll give that increased focus to our staff. And if you see these events, please report them to give us allow us, as is in the second one, to effectively use the data. We need the data into the service to allow us to analyse for trends. If we're not receiving it, it's not giving us that full coverage of what's happening on our sites for our staff. We'll review technology. Currently we have parking sensors on the trial at one of our community fire stations. That trial is ongoing, and we'll be feeding back on the first phase of that to the next Health and Safety Committee. We start to receive feedback from staff, and what we're going to do is quantify that into a data form for presentation to the Health and Safety Committee. That's actually the second phase, so it's really important that we listen to staff. The first phase, the staff felt that the technology wasn't that assistance, so we quickly changed that, went back to manufacturers and moved to phase 2. So it's really important that we get that feedback from staff to make sure that these systems are fit for purpose. Introduce bespoke low-speed removal training video. If we go back to previously in the presentation, we talked that the majority of our collisions being low speed moving forward under 10 mile an hour. We've produced a bespoke training video which is getting delivered at the moment by station managers across the whole service. And this focuses, what we did is we looked at the data over the last few years of where our collisions were happening. So our training video now reflects what they're seeing. And the reassuring bit for ourselves, and obviously we don't do things in isolation, we've produced this video on behalf of our region. So we've given this training video to our region partners to allow them to use bring into their work. The incident data we're receiving is reflected across the country of low speed moving forward. So we're making sure now over the next few months staff are getting exemplar training in the areas to help us try and reduce the amount of collisions that we've had. Our training video, we've had a lot of inquiries from around the country for this video. Dave mentioned sits on the Transport Operators Group nationally. The video was brought up in that. We've had requests from other services around the country to take our video and to use that to help them within their training, because it's really encouraging given kind of exemplifies the quality that's within the training video. We'll continue to engage representative bodies, absolutely, in terms of our own shared aim of reducing injuries and collisions. Support the NFC moving forward regionally and nationally, so obviously sitting within those two regional groups, feeding into the national NFCC health and safety groups, so we'll continue that work. Our SM lead will monitor the fire contaminant compliance. If the direction, if further information is given from the NFCC, we will ensure compliance with the service. I will deliver against our functional delivery plan for 25-26, and we'll continue to work towards those aims. I think, so, Chair, that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Sam, did you want to ask a question?
So yeah, last year I brought up the fact that I'd like to see that occupational health appointments differentiated between physical and mental health. I think that's so important. I'm happy that it's been done this year in detail as well. I was just wondering, there's a section called Other on medical appointments, And a lot of the examples that are bracketed are quite different. I was wondering whether that could be broken down, just so that we can scrutinise more effectively. In the other section, it's got the largest amount of OH appointments, and if that could be broken down in number, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, Jen, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry.
I was going to say, I'll be able to pick that up with Councillor
Oh,
Dawes to
sorry.
say that we will do that. We worked with Kelly quite close, so we can provide members with an update as much as we can, obviously, with a breakdown of that other.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Can I go now?
Me,
You
Mike.
next. Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation, thank you. You know, when a firefighter goes off sick or goes off work, key work if you like, how long do they stay on full pay? How long can a firefighter be off where he knows if it's a complex issue and he knows he's still going to be fully paid over his illness period? So how long is he off on full pay?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's 6 months. I'll be basically showing them the answer to their explanation himself.
Sorry, we're fighting on who can answer. So in terms of injuries on duty, you get 12 months full pay.
12
If,
months.
yeah, if it wasn't an injury on duty but you're off work sick, it's 6 months full pay and then 6 months half pay.
Thank you.
Okay, did you?
Yeah. Who is it that carries out the health safety inspections, please?
They're undertaken, the annual health and safety are undertaken by our tech officer, who's fully qualified to undertake those inspections.
Okay. Is there any external auditing of that process as well?
There isn't external auditing of those processes, but there is compliance. So wherever the report is completed, it's undertaken with compliance to the relevant regulations. In terms of the auditing of the sites, there's also fire risk assessments which are taken as part of our protection department, and they are undertaken by an external company.
Okay, thank you.
Sam, would you like to come in?
Are there any health and safety union reps that are involved with that person, or doesn't that happen?
We have a range, so we have a range of health and safety inspections undertaken under the separate umbrella in conjunction with rep bodies, the annual health and safety are undertaken purely by the health and safety department. However, the representative body sits on the health and safety committee where information is passed through that body on inspections.
Yeah, just about to, I was just going to mention in terms of the health and safety welfare committee, trade unions represented there and contribute, on a really regular basis. In addition to the workplace inspections, Kev alluded to our training and exercise and calendar, the exercise in particular. When we undertake planning for the exercise and off-site, trade unions will attend with Kevin and his team to look at the site, make sure the risk assessments are in place and what we're trying to achieve from the exercise. And so we all add in terms of that quality of the risk assessment and the planning stages. Be fair to say, Kevin?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, would you like to come in?
I'm sorry, it's a mile back in the presentation, but you talked at item 4 in the staff injuries at the WR34, and you talked, it's really good to see that you've got 28 apprentice firefighters, but is there any breakdown of how many of these accidents happen to them? Because obviously apprentices won't be as well trained as the men who've been out there and done all the training. Just wondered if there was any breakdown of those as well.
Yeah, so we would break down not necessarily the experience, we'd look at the age of person.
Yeah.
So we'd look at the age and we'd understand also when we review it where it took place. So it would be, say for instance at the TDA it was called, it was an injury during risk critical training. a subcategory would be where was it on recruit training. So if we started to see a number of events within recruits, then our next big course of action will be go speak to the recruit department to say, we've noticed we've had 2-3 injuries within your specific area of the service. We've looked at your recommendations, we've reviewed them, and we will take action whether we were happy with them. If we felt we needed a bit more assurance, we go and speak to them and say, yeah, they are broken down to subcategories, so we can really look into the data of where the accidents have occurred.
Thank you. And my second question was, at the RR31 part, you talked a little bit about technology, but is your technology within your vehicles helping the collision reduction as well?
In terms of what, sorry, in terms of?
The technology that's available within your cars and your appliances, is that also helping to feed the reduction of near misses and collisions and things?
Technology in terms of the future technology?
Yes. Do you think that will make the difference? But what you've got now,
yeah,
is that helping, and will future technology help even more, is what I'm saying?
we will see, especially with the next phase, again, I think Shippo showed them, will be more aware of this, the next phase of appliances coming through will comply with new regulations, so they will have warning systems built into them to advise people if cyclists or pedestrians are in their kind of danger zone. Obviously, the parking sensor trial we're trying to do now is the technology available to kind of bridge the gap, and what we're trying to now do is quantify the data to understand will this help us in further reducing. So at the moment we don't have the data, but that's our aim over the next 12 months is to give feedback on this.
Yeah, I can just add to that slightly. So a few years ago, sort of emerging technology come out, and probably the best example would be lane movement. That was something that when it was introduced into the fleet was it was a difficult introduction in all honesty, because obviously the safety was the priority, but as fire appliances respond to emergency incidents, sometimes they have to make fairly rapid manoeuvres. But going back to there, I would undoubtedly say it's reduced collisions and it's reduced dangerous road use and vehicle use. We're now sort of reaping the rewards of that technology, which 10 years ago wasn't really it wasn't suitable for us in its entirety. However, we've seen the benefits of it. The new technology that Kevin's alluding to there now, it's more targeted around low speed manoeuvres, because that's where we're seeing the real increase. And I think we can all see, and probably in our own vehicles now, how that's improved and become more and more reliable. So that's what we really need to focus on in terms of to make sure our staff are sort of getting the benefits of that and keeping ourselves and members of the public safe.
Thank you, that's very reassuring. Thank you.
Has anyone else got any more questions? No?
Yeah, just firstly, just thanks for Kevin. There's a lot of detail in that report, and I think, please take it away, study it. It's a massive amount of work that goes into putting together on an annual basis. And again, just to give everyone the reassurance, the level of scrutiny that goes into health, safety and welfare, and the level of reporting on a really frequent basis through performance management group, the committees, the inspections, and a real focus on health and safety and welfare in the organisation. I think the facts and figures speak for themselves. Kevin mentioned this earlier on, but I really wanted to just to reinforce the message. The performance levels, and rightly so, the level of sort of detail that people go into the report, and the encouragement of near misses, we're seeing the benefits of that. That's all on the context of we've increased the amount of vehicle movements hugely. And when you benchmark, and Kevin mentioned about the benchmarking reports around October, it's really stark. I'd encourage you to look at that, because when you compare what we do in Merseyside against other parts of the in other parts of the country, you'll see, and your colleagues will already be aware of, the amount of prevention activity is a really good example of that. We don't do desktop prevention work. We go out to communities all of that is increasing the probability of us having a collision or an injury. Same with from our training point of view, we've gone and increased our training cycle probably threefold over the last couple of years, and that's in also the context of Merseyside being a really, really busy organisation and being responding to incidents. So to do all that and to achieve the results that Kevin and the team are doing, I think it's worthy of note. And I just wanted to stress the context is important when we look at, certainly when we benchmark ourselves against other fire and rescue. Not everyone does home fire safety checks in the way we do them. Not everyone does training in the way we do them. So I just thought I'd draw everyone's attention to that. It's really good in terms of what we do.
So can we, it's recommended that members note the performance-related contents of the report, which is highlighted, and positive progress. The safety culture with the Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service. This may be compared to the previous year's report. Do we recommend?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 6, scrutiny work plan. Oh, bring you into this one. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of today's report is to present to members the proposed scrutiny forward work plan for this municipal year 25-26. Members will recall in May that the authority approved 3 items to be carried over for this year's scrutiny forward work plan from last year, one of which has been presented today. That was contaminants, which obviously was briefly spoken about today, pathway to net zero for fleet, and enforcement and prosecution. A workshop with scrutiny members was held on the 23rd of June this year to discuss other topics that have been previously mentioned by members in formulating and proposing a new scrutiny forward work plan. As a result of that workshop being held, the draft scrutiny forward work plan has been made, and it's contained in Appendix A, which is on page 57 of today's agenda. The proposal and recommendation for members today is to review the proposed scrutiny forward work plan in Appendix A and recommend, if members are satisfied, for it to be submitted to the authority for its approval. Happy
Do
to
we
take any
agree?
questions.
Any questions? Sorry. No? Do we agree with the recommendation?
Agreed.
Thank you. So, thank you all for attending the meeting. It's been positive one today, I think. Really well informed. Can I please ask you to note that the next meeting is the 21st of October. Is that okay? Close the meeting. Thank you all so much again for turning up. I hope you enjoyed the meeting.